Who's ready for a Halloween special?
The weather thought it was a Christmas special, apparently.
So, I'm going to talk about the time that I grew up in a haunted house. While we're doing that, I'm also going to be doing my makeup because one of my friends was like, you should make this video a tribute to one of your favorite YouTubers. And well, in case you haven't seen Murder, Mystery, and Makeup, that's what I'm Bailey. You gotta love her, okay? So we're gonna contribute this episode to her, and I'm gonna do my makeup while I'm doing this, and I suck at makeup. I'm not a makeup kind of girl. I did my best trying to straighten my hair for this video, but obviously I just gave up part of the way, so we'll see how this goes. Alright, let's get this Halloween special on. Just gonna close this so like nobody sees the tragedy of the makeup I'm about to do. Okay, let's get started. Alright, I wrote out everything about the house that I grew up in, so that way I don't get off track. But yeah, let's start with a serum. Alright. So, a house is a house when you're poor. It may leak and creak and hold secrets a physicist wouldn't believe. But it also holds a child with a new mother and father, helping leave behind the life they once knew. For in their hands they hold creation so little and so cold. Surely this new house they could call home, even though its surroundings were a little uneasy for most. Neighbors that stared, inserted themselves in your lives, smoked to get high, fight pit bulls, and were a Pizzagate sight. Surely this new house is a house when you're poor. You would think you have no more room for more. At least that's the human way to think. The bed. My mother tells me of many different stories when we were dealing with something that was beyond this world. Once when my mom was sleeping and I laid next to her on the bed, a baby not old enough even to walk. I'm gonna be honest for a moment, I have not used bronzer in like 2 years. She blinked for a second and all of a sudden, I was crying on the floor on the far end. She says she was confused at what had just occurred, because a blink was too quick for me to crawl on my own to that very end. And I was asleep when she closed her eyes and we laid in bed. Shaking it off, she didn't want to mess with the thoughts of her head. She laid me back on the bed and acted like nothing really happened. The boy. Once we started to make this house our home is when activity really picked up. And no, not just the druggies that tried to break in when my father was at work. I'm talking about the boy with the curly hair. Only my mom was able to see the little boy, as he occasionally appeared within the home. Oftentimes my mother would mistaken him for me, since we both looked quite similar at the time. The little boy would run through the halls, play with the pans in the kitchen, and sometimes at night, when my mom was holding me in her arms in bed, he appeared staring at us from the corner of the room. He would look out windows and open closed doors. Never did he harm us. My mother even began to speak to him every once in a while. He never responded back, but sometimes he would just smile. She says he was always so joyful, so full of life, and she found herself happy to see him. Later in life, we moved away from the home, and I was much older. I asked my mother about the little boy. Now, it's important to recognize we are Catholic. When she told me about the boy, she walked over to one of our many infant Jesus statues we have in the home and said, "This was him. This was the little boy I saw in the house." The soldier. My mother was showering one evening when she heard what sounded like a man screaming. He was loud and shouting orders, taking each step with a march. As he continued to march through the house, my mother found herself struck by his presence, and she wondered if someone had broken in. Before she had the chance to get out and get dressed, she heard the man right outside the bathroom door. Then his voice rang within the bathroom. The door never opened, yet he was there in the room. Naked and confused, my mother froze and waited to see what he would do as the voice got closer and closer to the shower. He got louder and louder until he was right outside the curtain. He continued to say orders and get louder. And then silence. My mother left confused. She pulled back the curtain to find an empty bathroom. No man, no yelling, just a cold room. Time and time again, the man would be heard through the house. But my mother realized he was a soldier after one day he appeared as an apparition. He was marching through the hallways in a soldier's uniform. Back and forth he would march. Never did he move an object or recognize my mother was there. He just continued to march back and forth like a broken record, and all one could really do was stare. Sorry about that, guys. It's actually really hard to do makeup and tell a story at the same time, so I just went ahead and did my makeup. Basically, my idea was to do a little bit mixture of like a clown face and then put in where only one eye has like this lines coming out of it. The whole point of it is one perspective, because when people only see somebody from one perspective of them, they think they might be crazy or a goofball or a clown, but they're only seeing from one perspective and they're not seeing from the other person's point of view. Anyways, let's continue. The mirror. Now, here's a story my father takes from this house because fathers always seem to not get anything to happen to them till the end of the movie. There was a mirror that was hung in the hallway. It was the closest to the living room. He would use this mirror to get ready. And one morning, my father looked down to get something from a small table under the mirror. When he looked up at the mirror, it was no longer his reflection. There in the mirror was a clear figure of my great-grandmother. The one on my father's side. The woman that had raised my father when his parents were busy at work. There she was, looking straight back at him. He backed away from the mirror, and then she was gone. At that time, my great-grandmother was alive. However, her time to leave us would happen later that week, making us wonder if this reflection was truly a warning. Great-grandfather. I struggled with asthma as a young child, but one night really set the tone for my chances to live. I couldn't breathe. I gasped for air and my family went to go get my ventilator. However, I was going on for too long without air. My mother says that my lips began to turn purple and my skin a ghostly white. She continued to try to wake me and help me breathe. Then they placed the ventilator on my face, but my eyes began to roll to the back of my head, and I struggled to keep myself upright. My mother was scared for the only child she could ever bear was dying right in front of her. As my mother raised herself to look around the room, there he stood. My great-grandfather, grandpa of my mom, stood in the room looking at my mother. My mother says that the look he gave her that night was one to make her scared, and she knew why he was there. With tears in her eyes and agony in her heart, she pleaded to great-grandpa. She told him, "Don't take my little girl. Don't take her away from me. Please, you can't take her." It was after that I began to breathe, and my color returned to my face. My mother was focused on me during that moment, that when she turned to look for my great-grandfather, he was gone. In the morning, our family received a phone call that my cousin Joseph had died in a car accident that night. The death of my cousin Joseph was hard on my family because my mother cared for him like a son. My aunt had it the hardest for the next couple of years, and the month after his death, we moved out of that house. We ended up moving to my grandma and grandpa's house in a small town 20 miles away. What could go wrong for a Catholic family moving to a town full of witchcraft, druggies, cursed white owls, verbal satanic worshippers, mystery cars that seem to just stalk our property every once in a while, corrupt schools, corrupt government officials, and even corrupt churches with corrupt religious people and neighborhoods? We would go on to live our lives in this small town where people place spells on our family. We would pray for church members attacked by demons and then be followed home by those demons. We'd be taunted by something we could only call the bird. We would hear voices, see faces, and even shadows around the community, in our church, and even in our home. Sometimes we would wake up with scratches across our backs. Once I woke up and just felt bugs all over my legs, And then the only thing that I can describe as a snake coiling around my body till I couldn't breathe. No inhaler could help. It wasn't until my mother threw holy water on me did I have the sensation leave. And I could breathe again. I could go on the paranormal activity I have experienced throughout my life, but we will save those in-depth stories for another time. So, that's me growing up in a haunted house and then going to a town that maybe was more scarier than the house itself. But one of the things that really was intriguing is when I got my dog Katie. So Katie was a Shih Tzu mix. She was a rejection from a breeder from her litter because she had a hernia, and they believed that she was gonna die within a week. My uncle, who was a vet tech at the time and happened to be there at the clinic when they wanted to get rid of this puppy, got Katie and brought Katie home to us, and she lived with us for 15 years. Yeah. Something that was always interesting about thinking about our old house was that Katie was always with me. I don't have any memories where Katie wasn't there. I even wrote like a pretty 13-page essay about my dog Katie. Katie was interesting and she definitely helped me sleep at night. My mom would place her on the bunk bed with me and she would help me sleep. Oftentimes, when I was scared, she'd lick my face and help me go to sleep. I don't remember much of the haunted house itself from my memories, only because I believe I've censored most of that part of my life. I do remember one day playing hide and go seek and going hide and go seek with my mom, and I went to go hide in the closet, which I briefly mentioned in the earlier. And Katie went in there with me, and we were hiding. And I just remember at some point I looked next to me because I just got this weird sensation or this weird feeling. But I don't remember what I saw. But it was enough that I got scared and ran out of the closet. And Katie was crying with me right behind as we ran to my mom. Other stuff I'm more than sure happened to me. I just don't remember. I briefly remember my cousin coming over, and she only came over once for a sleepover and she never came back again. She was too scared to come back. I just remember Katie licking our feet and making us laugh during that sleepover, but I don't know what she saw, or I don't know, I don't remember anything from that house, and that's the hard part. I left some stuff out on this, but basically, according to my mom also, our TV fell at one point and she saw me get dragged out of the way. Like, nobody physically or visibly was there, but I got pulled and just basically didn't get crushed by this TV. It was an interesting house to grow up in. I have gone back to the house before or after because my aunt lives there, and I've gone in once, but nothing ever seems to happen. There's no paranormal activity now, or there's no unexplainable noises or people walking around or anything like that. Interesting enough, I don't know why. Maybe spirits just follow us for some reason. But I definitely wanted to have some fun and talk about the haunted house I lived in, and then make this concept that I wanted to do with my face, because So Leo was like, well, I want to do something with a purpose, but I just can't tell what do I do. Anyways, I'm gonna put it on my head now because I, for some reason, really like it. I bought it at Walmart. So with all that, it makes you think, did my dog at any point ever see something that I couldn't see in that house? Can pets see ghosts? Which there has been studies. I mean, we see the videos sometimes all over the internet, or somebody. There's plenty of videos or people that believe that dogs can see ghosts. First of all, you have to believe that ghosts exist. Physics people don't believe ghosts exist because in order for ghosts to exist, they would have to have an endless supply of energy, which doesn't exist. But then we're also, apparently in the future, if we were able to catch all the rays of the sun by basically enclosing our solar system, we'd have endless energy. So anyways, that's just me babbling about physics. And so if you believe in ghosts, do you believe that pets can see ghosts? Well, interesting enough, in case you didn't know about the eyeball anatomy of like cats and dogs, those are the most common household pets. But really, animals have a tapetum lucidum, which is basically like this bluish greenish reflection that goes behind the retina, and so that's why, like, when you take a picture, they have like that reflected light and you just see like the green dots, versus like when people take pictures, we might have red eye. The retina catches is what is going to get interpreted. When it comes to animals, or mammals, your dogs and your cats specifically that we're talking about right now, that tapetum lucidum basically acts as another reflector and helps to reflect light back to the retina, so it catches light that our eyes might miss, because we do have light that just passes through the retina and doesn't get processed as anything in our minds, or like how we comprehend color and light and all that stuff. What the tapetum lucidum does is it reflects that light, so that way it's capturing any light strands that it might miss. With that being said, that helps them to be able to see better in the dark or at night. Some people like to say like they have night vision. In a way, that's true because they're just taking in more light. Other studies have shown that dogs and cats are able to see UV light. So this is another thing, like UV light we use when certain things we can't see, we use UV light, and it just, things that we weren't able to see with our regular eye, that UV light now shows us stuff that wasn't visible before. Now it's visible because of that UV light. And so if dogs and cats are able to be able to process UV light, that is a possibility that they can see stuff that we don't, because they're able to process the UV light. A very interesting thing is that they can sense the Earth's magnetic field. So in this way, can they sense other magnetic fields, like from living beings? Because human body, any living body, anything that we interact with, we give off our own magnetic field. There's the magnetic field of the heart, there's the magnetic field of the earth, and so are dogs and cats able to process that and able to basically use those to their advantage to see and feel things that aren't there. With that being said, dogs and cats having these abilities are probably able to see things that we can't see, such as ghosts. And that's why they know when something's gonna happen, or they know when something's in a room that we can't see. So ideally, can pets see ghosts? I believe in ghosts. I'm gonna say yes, because there's studies about the wide range for dogs and cats and their vision, and if they're able to see UV light and able to sense magnetic field, then they're able to definitely sense something that is in the room, and ideally even ghosts would be able to give off magnetic field vibes. UV lights, IR spectrums, magnetic field test, sound recording are all different ways to catch apparitions on camera or audio. Fish are actually able to see IR spectrums, and there have also been videos of possible ghost sightings where there happen to be a cat and a fish in the same video, and they react to the same certain thing that we can't see. Alright guys, so this was super fun to do and talk about. Leave comments down below if you've ever had any experiences with the paranormal, or if you have ever had a dog or cat or any animal have a weird reaction and you thought it was a ghost. Leave those comments down below. And I will see y'all next time. Happy Halloween!